Back in late 2019, I reviewed the Sennheiser Momentum 3 wireless and I was left seriously impressed by their sonic reproduction, but was less disappointed in other areas. Fast forward to 2022 and we've got its successor, the Momentum 4 wireless. Now these over-the-ear Bluetooth headphones can be found for roughly £300 in the UK. And in this review you can see if they're actually worth their price tag, and furthermore how they compare to rivals and of course its predecessor. So to kick off this review I want to talk about connectivity. This is quite important. Now the headphones over Bluetooth support the SBC, AAC, aptX and aptX adaptive codecs. Now while the latter is certainly appreciated and therefore gives you a better audio fidelity, at least over a wireless connection, it is a shame not to see the LDAC codec or similar codecs like it. And the reason I say that is because in my case I've got a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus which uses an older Qualcomm chipset, and as such means that I cannot utilize aptX adaptive and instead I am downscaled to aptX. It would have been really great to see Sennheiser actually integrate LDAC given these headphones price and of course some of its competitors. Now past Bluetooth codecs I had no problems when it came to lip sync delays or video lag, and furthermore when it came to connecting up to my phone I had no problems walking around 10 meters through walls. Not literally, but at least when my phone was placed, let's say, in my bedroom while I was in the kitchen. Now I should also point out that these headphones support Bluetooth multipoint, which allows you to simultaneously pair up to two different devices, handy for those people with a laptop and then a smartphone. Now I've been told by Sennheiser that you can simultaneously pair up to two different devices using aptX adaptive, which is something that I can't quite verify, but I'll just have to take the manufacturer's claims. Here in this respect it's actually quite rare because some other headphones out there on the market, when simultaneously paired up to another device, will degrade their audio codec to the likes of SBC or AAC. Now aside from connecting over the air, what about when it comes to a wired connection? Well, these headphones do have a 2.5mm jack input and of course have got a cable that has a 3.5mm jack output. Now the only question over here was that could I actually take calls whilst using a wired connection, and as far as I can tell you can't. Now you can have the headphones on and therefore allow you to still benefit from active noise cancellation while plugged in via a wired connection. However, when it comes to taking calls, you'll have to unplug the cable. Now on the plus side, however, you can have these headphones connected over a wired connection or a wireless Bluetooth connection while charging via the USB Type-C port. Now that is quite a rarity, and that's why I'm quite highlighting it in this segment of this review, because most other headphones, when connected over to a power source, will automatically switch off, be it in a wired or wireless format. But thankfully that's not the case with these Sennheiser headphones, and therefore allows you to benefit from charging them while simultaneously using them. Now this does perfectly bring me on to battery life, and these headphones are rated to run for 60 hours at least with active noise cancellation enabled, which is absolutely insane. Now I can't certify for them running for 60 hours without stopping, but in my case I was burning them in for a long period of time and I had active noise cancellation enabled while these headphones were sitting in my cupboard. In this case they pretty much didn't drop below 70% over the long period of time that I had them burning in, and I can say that was countless hours. Now that means that the battery life is far superior than what else that I have personally encountered, and in comparison to what the other manufacturers claim, this Sennheiser headphones are certainly impressive in this department. Now of course that USB Type-C port does allow for fast charging, so if you do plug in for around 5 minutes or so you'll get a couple of hours of playback, and if you do want to fully charge them it'll take you roughly 1 to 2 hours. So with all of that out of the way, we get to arguably the most important part, and that is the sound quality. Now these headphones have got a rating of 6Hz all the way up to 22 kHz and have got 42mm dynamic drivers. Now that combination is absolutely sublime, at least to my own ears. Now bearing in mind I did my test over a wired connection and also while connected over to my Samsung phone using the aptX codec, so therefore not the aptX adaptive codec. And yet despite being limited in terms of overall codec support, I was left jaw-dropped. Now let's break it down in terms of the sound frequency range. First off, in terms of the bass. Now the sub bass does extend really well, specifically if you enable the bass boost function on the app, which we'll touch upon shortly, and I'll share my own EQ. Now here I felt that I was really engaged with listening to EDM, R&B or D&B music. It just really left me excited and isn't the same thing that I could have said about previous generation Sennheiser headphones. As for the mid bass, it still retained that sort of Sennheiser pedigree of that controlled sound, and yet there was plenty of oomph in there. So much so that I actually reduced the bass by 1 notch in order to counteract that. So therefore reducing the bass by 1 notch allowed me to have a little bit more of that presence on the mids rather than having that more of an emphasis on the mid bass tones. Suffice to say, I was left very impressed across the low-end frequency tones, and that's not the same that I've ever said about some other Sennheiser headphones. Now, as for the mid-range, you might automatically think, well, here it's going to be recessed, it's going to be pushed back because of that little bit of emphasis on the bass tones. Well, that is definitely not the case. The mid-range over here is still class-leading. In comparison to the other headphones that I've reviewed, the only ones that really spring to mind are ones from Edifier Stax and also Technics. The mid-range over here do a really good job, and the Sennheisers still have that, well, classic Sennheiser sound. They're very much forward in their mid-range tones, and they excel both on the lower and upper mid, so both for male and female vocals, you're not going to have any problems. I was left really engaged when I was listening back to my music, and I certainly found it a thoroughly enjoyable experience. Now, as for the highs, they extend pretty well at the top end, although will sound a little bit rolled off in comparison to audiophile grade wired headphones, but in the Bluetooth market they're certainly impressive. But what really stood out more than anything for me was the overall soundstage. The imaging, the tonality, the instrument separation, the overall width and depth that one attained, and also the lack of a reverb as such in comparison to some of its competitors was absolutely class leading. I can't think of a set of better Bluetooth headphones that provide such an engaging soundstage reproduction. It just left me jaw dropped. If I compare them to the likes of the Technics headphones, these headphones suffer from a bit of reverb. If I compare them to the likes of, let's say, the Nuraphone or the Sony or Bose headphones, all these headphones sound a little bit more close and don't have that same sort of instrument separation as the Sennheisers. And then if I compare them to the likes of the Edifier or Stax, these headphones just don't quite compete when it comes to having that bit more of that wide sound signature. Frankly, here the Sennheiser Momentum 4 wireless in the soundstage reproduction, and thanks to their 42mm dynamic drivers, are absolutely unmatched and in a league of their own. So what about when it comes to recording? Well, everything you can hear right now is coming directly from the headphones, and what I will say subjectively is that the recording quality is very impressive. However, when you are treated with some background noise, so right now I'm playing my friend's song, it's called Priya J Like Me, it's coming from my bookshelf speakers, you can hear a lot of Priya J's vocals, specifically if I go quiet. So what I'm trying to recreate there is that in a sort of a controlled environment that these headphones will pick up a lot of ambient sounds. Now, just for comparison, here are the Bose NC 700s, which I often use as a reference point. Now, the Bose headphones do not have the same sort of recording quality as the Sennheiser headphones. However, when it comes to be treated in a real-world scenario, in other words, there's a bit more ambient sound, the Bose headphones are focusing on my voice, even when I go quiet. Hopefully there you'll be able to hear the differences between the Sennheiser and the Bose headphones, and ultimately what I'm trying to portray over here is that the Sennheiser headphones won't do as well in a real-world scenario, while some of its competitors, such as the Bose NC 700s, will be far superior when it comes to actually taking calls. So moving swiftly on, we get onto active noise cancellation, and here I was very much intrigued to see if they would be an improvement over their predecessors. Well, I can safely say that there's a massive improvement. Here Sennheiser has improved the overall algorithm of ANC, and therefore means that they're actually very competent at blocking out sound. I'd say they're pretty much on par with the likes of the Technics headphones that I previously reviewed. However, in comparison to class-leading ANC headphones out there on the market, such as the likes from Bose, Sony or Nuraphone, they can't quite compete. Ultimately here, Sennheiser have definitely upped the game, but they still can't compete with the ANC flagship headphones out there in the market. Now, I did say I'll talk about the app, and here it is. Here you can see if it's connected or not and the battery life, and then you can also see the connections that you have got. So for example, if you've got two devices connected simultaneously via Bluetooth multipoint, you'll see them over here. Now, as for the equalizer, you have got different presets, or you can create your own. In my case, I've reduced 1 notch from the bass, left mid at the default level, and added 1 notch to the treble. And then I've enabled bass boot and left the podcast disabled. Of course, it's all very subjective and to do with your own hearing profile, but that's what I felt to get the best sort of sonic reproduction. Now as for sound check, it allows you to create your own personalized equalizer, but in my case I just didn't feel that it really did a good job. But of course, if you're inexperienced, for example, it can be handy to actually create a little audio profile that is more tuned to your ears. Now as for the sound zones, it basically detects where you are and enables or disables certain functions. Speaking of which, here active noise cancellation can't exactly be disabled, at least not from what I'm aware. If I were to scale over here, this is what I would imagine as being disabled, but there's no on and off toggle. Yes, you have the adaptive toggle, but it doesn't seem to really disable ANC, not from what I could tell. So in my case anyway, I run ANC in maximum level. I had no problems in terms of sound or in terms of any sort of leakage or, for example, static sound, but nonetheless it's just something I'd like to point out. And yes, there is a transparency mode which can be enabled at a touch of a button, and that can be quite handy. Here you do have wind noise reduction off auto and max. I found auto to be the best, and then you've got auto pause functionality when transparency mode is enabled. Then you have also got the side tones, whereby you've got up to 50 or 100% of level of side tones, and that's for you to hear back yourself when you're on a call, which prevents you from shouting. Now on that note here, you have got the comfort call setting. Now that effectively means that when you're hearing your recipient, you're going to hear them almost like you're listening to them through a set of bookshelf speakers. If you were to disable the option, it goes into a more traditional Bluetooth sense or Bluetooth headphone sense. It means that you can hear them a little bit closer to your ears. It really depends as to what you like, but in my case, I actually preferred using comfort call. Of course, it depends on the scenario. Now, as for on-ear detection, you can enable or disable it, equally with smart pause, and you can enable or disable the auto power off, which can be quite handy if you've forgotten to switch off your headphones when you've placed them down. Finally, over here, you can see the codec support that is currently in use. Now, my main complaint over here is through the app, and you might have seen that there's no option to actually customize the touch-based control nor the physical button. Now, indeed, these headphones do have touch-based input, and in my case, I found them very, very responsive. No problems whatsoever when it comes to operating them, but they're a little bit too sensitive sometimes. If I were to stretch out my hands and, for example, just want to have a little bit of a stretch, I might accidentally touch the side panel on the right-hand side panel, that is, and then here it would pause or, let's say, skip a song or something. Here I wish that Sennheiser would integrate an option of customizing it, and I have been told by Sennheiser it's something they're currently looking at. Equally, the physical button initiates your voice assistant. In my case, I don't use a voice assistant, so it'd be great to see the customization of the physical button as well through the app, but alas, that's not quite the case, at least not at the time of filming, and it's just something you should be mindful about. So past the app, I should talk about its design and build quality, and first off, on the former, the headphones are available in a black and white finish. As for the latter, the headphones have got a really nice build quality, and it certainly stands out in comparison to some of its competitors. And here I'm thinking of the likes of Sony or also the likes of Edifier. Now, the headphones themselves have got rotating cups, and therefore makes it really handy if you want to take them with their carrying case. However, unfortunately, they can't be folded inwards, so therefore you can't exactly take them and transport them in a small little rucksack as conveniently as some of its competitors. Now, the overall weight of the headphones is 293 grams, at least according to Sennheiser, and in my case, I had no problems wearing them over a long period of time, thanks to its little ingenious little headband design where there's a little bit of a gap at the top. It meant they didn't dig in. They're also very easy to clean due to the material used at the top of the headband. And as for the cushiony ear pads, there's no problem when it came to wearing glasses, so therefore reading glasses or sunglasses, and furthermore, the overall clamp force at least was perfect to me. They didn't feel too loose, nor did they feel too tight. Just a right little blend, and therefore meant that the headphones could be used for hours on end without any sort of discomfort. So with all of that in mind, it brings me on to my verdict, and these headphones aren't exactly faultless. The ANC algorithm could have been improved. The call quality could be a little bit better when it comes to dealing with a noisy environment. The touch controls are a bit too sensitive, and the lack of customization, at least at the time of filming, is quite disappointing. And then the fact that you don't actually have the LDAC codec in this day and age is a little bit, well, surprising and baffling given that the target market of these headphones. Yes, you've got aptX adaptive, but there's a bit more of a limited audience with that. Nonetheless, these headphones are absolutely sensational when it comes to the raw sound quality, and are pretty much unmatched when it comes to the Bluetooth ANC market, at least in my opinion. As a result, I can definitely see myself recommending them for those people who want a decent ANC performance and phenomenal audio quality over a wireless connection. As a result, they get my Best Buy award. Now I'd be intrigued to hear your thoughts of the headphones down in the comment section below, and if you've liked this independent detail review and want to see more, definitely do drop a like, subscribe and hit that bell notification, all of which are greatly appreciated and allows me to continue delivering honest reviews like this one. As such, I've been Totally Dubbed and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and goodbye.